Emily Parker's car rumbled over the uneven country road, the gravel crunching beneath the tires as she neared the small cluster of trees that marked the entrance to her late mother's cottage. The sky hung heavy with an overcast gray, the kind that seemed to press down on the earth and muffled all sound except the occasional call of a distant crow. She gripped the steering wheel tightly, her knuckles pale, as she fought back the ache in her chest that had settled deep inside since receiving the news of her mother's passing just 2 weeks ago. The cottage had always been a place she'd avoided, a symbol of a fractured past she wasn't ready to confront until now. Years ago, after a bitter argument and a long silence that stretched into estrangement, Emily had left this countryside behind, choosing the bustling anonymity of the city over the quiet isolation of her mother's world. But now, heavily pregnant and alone, she had no choice but to return. The man who had promised to stand by her side had vanished without a word, leaving Emily to face the coming storm of motherhood on her own. Before we continue, make sure to like and subscribe to never miss a new video. And tell me, where are you watching this video from? I love seeing all different people come together for these stories. As she pulled up to the narrow driveway, wild grasses brushed against the car's undercarriage, signaling how long the place had been left unattended. The once cheerful white paint of the cottage was now faded and peeling, the windows clouded with dirt and age. Ivy had crept up the wooden siding, wrapping the house like a slow-growing shroud. The front porch sagged slightly, the steps uneven beneath the weight of years and neglect. Emily's breath caught in her throat as she sat for a moment, staring at the familiar yet foreign sight. This was the place where she had spent childhood summers filled with laughter and warmth, where her mother's voice had been a constant lullaby. Now it felt like a ghost town, abandoned not just by others, but by the very presence that had once made it a home. Her hand moved instinctively to her rounded belly, a gentle reminder of the new life she carried inside her. The pregnancy had been a surprise, a twist that neither she nor her fiancé had anticipated, and now it was a source of both hope and fear. The baby's soft movements beneath her palm steadied her nerves, anchoring her amidst the swirling uncertainty. With a slow exhale, Emily reached for the door handle, its metal cold and unyielding. The lock gave way with a reluctant creak, and she pushed the door open, stepping into the dim interior. Dust motes floated in the thin shafts of light that sifted through the grimy windows, illuminating faded wallpaper peeling at the edges and the faint scent of mildew mixed with old wood. The air inside was stale, untouched by fresh breath for too long. Her footsteps echoed softly on the worn wooden floor as she made her way. Through the small entryway, memories flickering like fragile shadows. The narrow hallway led to a modest living room, where a threadbare armchair sat facing a cold fireplace, its hearth filled with ashes long since settled. Emily's eyes scanned the room, taking in the signs of disuse. The spiderwebs clinging to the corners, the layers of dust that coated every surface, the cracked mirror that hung crookedly on the wall. This was a place frozen in time, waiting for someone to bring it back to life. And yet, despite the decay, a faint pulse of familiarity tugged at her heart. She moved toward the kitchen, the linoleum floor cracked and worn beneath her feet. The cabinets hung open slightly, empty except for a few chipped mugs and a faded calendar pinned to the wall, its pages stuck on a day-long past. The sink was stained and dry, the faucet corroded with rust. Yet, as her gaze lingered, she could almost hear the echo of her mother's humming, the soft clatter of dishes, the warmth of shared meals and whispered conversations. Emily swallowed hard, the weight of grief pressing down as she struggled to hold back the tears. This house, neglected and forgotten by others, held the last traces of a woman she had loved and lost, a mother whose final days had been spent in quiet solitude here. The silence was a heavy presence, as if the walls themselves mourned alongside her. Her hands trembled as she reached into her coat pocket, and pulled out a folded envelope. An unopened letter she had found among her mother's belongings after the funeral. The handwriting was unmistakable, looping and neat, the ink slightly faded with time. She hesitated before breaking the seal, the paper crackling softly in the stillness. The letter began simply, with words of love and apology, acknowledging the years of distance between them and the pain that had never truly healed. Her mother's voice came through in the carefully chosen phrases, a mixture of regret and hope. She spoke of the cottage as more than just a building, describing it as a sanctuary, a place of refuge meant to protect Emily from the storms that life might bring. There was a hint of something deeper hidden between the lines, a suggestion that the cottage held secrets and memories that were hers to discover. The letter urged Emily to stay, to find strength in the quiet embrace of the countryside, and to prepare for the new chapter that awaited her and her unborn child. Emily folded the letter carefully and tucked it back into her coat. She wandered back toward the living room, the weight of the past settling around her like a gentle shroud. Despite the desolation, the cottage whispered promises of healing and renewal, beckoning her to reclaim what had been lost. Outside, the wind rustled the bare branches of the surrounding trees, carrying with it the faint scent of earth and rain. Emily stood by the window, her breath fogging the glass as she gazed out at the rolling fields beyond. For the first time in years, she felt a fragile thread of hope weaving through the grief. A chance to rebuild, to find peace, and to embrace the unknown future that awaited. The journey ahead was uncertain and daunting. But as Emily pressed her hand against the cool pane, she made a silent vow to face it with courage. The cottage was no longer just a relic of the past. It was the beginning of something new. And as the baby stirred inside her, she knew that this return was the start of a story that would bind mother and daughter together beyond the limits of time and loss. The following days folded into one another with an unsettling blend of silence and small discoveries. Emily found herself drawn deeper into the cottage's embrace, each creaking floorboard and faded wallpaper pattern teasing memories she had long buried. The letter from her mother lingered in her mind like a quiet beacon, urging her to look beyond the dust and decay. Her curiosity was piqued by the vague recollections of cryptic notes her mother had once written, fragments of warnings about the house, about the land surrounding it, and about secrets that had been carefully guarded. Those letters, scattered among old boxes in the attic when she had first arrived, were like whispers from the past, urging Emily to uncover something hidden beneath the surface. Each evening, as twilight seeped through the grimy windows, Emily would sit at the small wooden table in the kitchen, sifting through the brittle papers and photographs she had unearthed so far. The images were faded but familiar. Her mother, as a young woman, smiling softly against the backdrop of this very countryside, and family portraits where Emily herself appeared as a child, laughing and carefree under the sun. But beneath the warmth of these glimpses, there was an unmistakable undercurrent of tension. Some of the letters hinted at old family disputes, at sacrifices made in silence, and at a heritage that had been both a blessing and a burden. One note in particular caught Emily's attention. A folded scrap of paper, tucked inside the pages of a yellowed journal, that simply read, "Protect what you cannot see." The phrase echoed in her thoughts, becoming a quiet mantra as she wandered the cottage's rooms. In the parlor, the fireplace held a collection of charred wood and crumbling ash. Yet she noticed faint scorch marks on the mantel, as if something had been carefully burned there long ago. In the bedroom, beneath a loose floorboard, she found a small wooden box, its surface carved with intricate patterns. The box was empty, but inside lay a folded piece of paper, written in her mother's familiar hand. It read, For Emily, when the time is right. Emily's heart quickened with a mix of anticipation and unease. The cottage was no longer just a neglected building. It was a vessel of messages, a repository of secrets left just for her. The feeling that her mother had prepared this place for her arrival, that the cottage was waiting to reveal its mysteries, grew stronger with each discovery. One afternoon, as a soft rain pattered against the window panes, Emily sat curled in the armchair by the hearth, the letter in her lap and the warmth of the fading fire flickering across her face. The room seemed to breathe around her, shadows dancing in the corners as if alive with unseen presence. She felt a subtle shift in the air, a sensation that she was not entirely alone. Suddenly, a faint sound caught her attention, a whisper of movement from the hallway outside. Emily stood, her pulse quickening, and stepped cautiously toward the door. The house was silent again, but the moment lingered, as if someone or something had just passed through. Her mind raced with questions. Had she imagined it? Or was the cottage itself responding to her presence, as if welcoming her home after all these years? The thought sent a shiver down her spine, mingling fear with a strange comfort. Determined to understand more, Emily began to piece together the fragments of her mother's life hidden within the cottage. She found journals tucked away in a dusty chest, their pages filled with careful reflections, sketches of the surrounding woods, and cryptic references to a legacy that needed protection. The entries spoke of resilience and hope, of a bond that transcended distance and time. At night, as the wind rattled the window panes and the house settled around her, Emily often found herself drifting into uneasy sleep, her dreams filled with images of her mother reaching out through shadowed forests and moonlit fields. Sometimes she awoke to the faint scent of lavender, her mother's favorite, lingering in the air. The cottage, with all its faded grandeur and quiet secrets, was slowly weaving itself into the fabric of Emily's new reality. It was more than shelter. It was a place alive with memory and meaning, a sanctuary her mother had crafted for the difficult journey ahead. Yet outside, the world remained unaware. Neighbors kept their distance, their eyes flickering with curiosity and unspoken judgment when they saw Emily wandering the grounds alone. The village had long whispered about the Parker family and the tragedies that had shadowed them. Now, Emily felt their silent scrutiny as a weight pressing down upon her. Despite this, she resisted the urge to retreat. She was here to claim what was hers, to face the unknown with the flickering flame of her mother's love as her guide. One afternoon, while exploring the overgrown garden behind the cottage, Emily stumbled upon a weathered stone marker half buried beneath tangled vines. The inscription was worn but still legible. For those who seek, the path will reveal itself. The message resonated deeply, a quiet invitation to continue. Emily knelt beside the stone, tracing the letters with trembling fingers, and felt a surge of determination. Whatever secrets the cottage held, she was ready to uncover them. As twilight fell once more, Emily returned indoors, the faint glow of a single candle casting long shadows against the walls. She placed the wooden box on the table, the empty space inside seeming to promise a future discovery. With a deep breath, she unfolded another letter from the bundle, a note her mother had written just weeks before her passing. "My dearest Emily," it began, "if you are reading this, you have come home. This cottage has been waiting for you, a refuge in times of storm and sorrow. Trust in its walls, for they hold more than memories. There is strength here, passed down through generations, waiting for you to claim it." Emily folded the letter slowly, her eyes moist with unshed tears. The cottage was no longer just a place to escape. It was a living testament to her mother's enduring love and a promise of protection for the life growing inside her. That night, as a soft rain drummed against the roof, Emily lay awake, listening to the house breathe around her. The whispers of the past mingled with the quiet rhythms of her unborn child, weaving a delicate tapestry of hope and mystery. In the stillness, she felt the cottage watching over her, its secrets waiting patiently to be unveiled. And Emily at last felt a flicker of peace amidst the shadows of her heart. Emily stood in the middle of the cottage's modest living room, the soft afternoon light filtering through the grimy windows and casting a muted glow over the peeling wallpaper and worn wooden floorboards. The quiet, once oppressive, now felt like a fragile invitation to begin anew. Though the house was dilapidated and neglected, Emily decided that this would be her sanctuary, the place where she would prepare for the life that was soon to change everything. Despite the exhaustion that clung to her like a shadow, she resolved to stay. The idea of leaving, of retreating back to the city and the loneliness that awaited there, felt hollow now. Here, among the faded remnants of her mother's life, she sensed a thread of hope, a chance to reconnect with the past and find strength for the future. Moving carefully through the rooms, Emily explored the cottage with fresh eyes, each step stirring memories she had long tried to suppress. The narrow hallway led to her mother's bedroom, where the scent of lavender still lingered faintly beneath the dust. The bed was unmade, the quilt rumpled as if someone had only recently risen from it. On the bedside table sat a delicate porcelain vase, chipped but still holding a single, dried flower. She picked up an old photograph lying beside the vase. Her mother, young and radiant, standing beneath a tree that still grew in the overgrown garden outside. The image was a stark contrast to the woman she had known in recent years, worn thin by illness and solitude. Yet even in this faded snapshot, there was a resilience, a light that Emily had forgotten existed. Her fingers traced the edges of the photo as a wave of emotion swept over her. The years of silence, the anger and misunderstandings, all felt like distant echoes now. Here, in this quiet room, the barriers between them seemed to soften. Emily moved toward a small writing desk tucked into the corner, its surface cluttered with scattered papers and a half-filled journal. She opened the notebook carefully, the pages yellowed and brittle. Her mother's neat handwriting filled the lines, thoughts and reflections, sketches of wildflowers, notes about the changing seasons. Reading the entries, Emily felt as though her mother was speaking directly to her, weaving a tapestry of memories and hopes that stretched across time. There were passages about fear and loss, but also about love and forgiveness, about the strength found in facing life's storms with an open heart. One entry caught Emily's attention, a passage about the importance of roots, even when they hurt, and the promise of growth that comes from tending to them. It was a message meant for her, a gentle encouragement to embrace the past as a foundation rather than a prison. She closed the journal slowly and glanced around the room, feeling the weight of her mother's presence as if it hovered in the air, like a comforting embrace. The cottage was more than a house. It was a living memory, a place where love had been preserved and where healing could begin. Later, in the kitchen, Emily unpacked a small box she had brought from the city, a collection of essentials for her stay and for the baby's arrival. As she arranged the few items on the worn countertop, she noticed a faded recipe card tucked beneath the box lid. The handwriting was unmistakably her mother's, detailing a simple bread recipe that had been a staple in their family for generations. The card sparked a sudden urge to bake, to fill the empty rooms with the warmth of fresh bread and the smells of home. It felt like a small act of reclaiming life, a way to breathe vitality back into the quiet walls. Kneeling on the kitchen floor with the flour dusting her hands, Emily allowed herself a rare moment of peace. The rhythmic motion of mixing the dough soothed her, connecting her to a lineage of women who had come before her, who had nurtured and sustained their families through both joy and hardship. As the bread rose in the oven, she sat by the window, watching the clouds drift lazily across the sky. The garden outside was wild and untamed, a tangle of vines and weeds that had claimed the space in her absence. Yet even there, life pulsed beneath the surface, waiting for care and attention. Emily thought of the baby growing inside her, a fragile life soon to enter this world. The thought filled her with equal parts fear and hope. The past had been difficult, but the future held promise, a chance to break cycles, to create a new story rooted in love and resilience. That evening, as the cottage settled into the hush of night, Emily lit a small candle on the dining table. Its flickering flame cast dancing shadows against the walls, transforming the room into a sanctuary of light. She pulled out a box of old photographs she had found tucked away in the attic, spreading them out before her. Among the images were snapshots of family gatherings, birthdays, and quiet moments, some joyful, others tinged with sorrow. She saw her mother's face at different ages, each one telling a story of strength and vulnerability. There were pictures of Emily herself as a toddler, her small hand clasped in her mother's, a testament to the unbroken bond between them. As she looked through the photos, Emily felt a swell of determination. The cottage was not just a relic of the past. It was a place where memories could be honored and where new ones could be made. It was the foundation she needed to build a life for herself and her child. In the quiet that followed, she began to write in a journal she had found in the cottage, a blank book with a soft leather cover. Her handwriting was tentative at first, but as the words flowed, she felt a sense of release and clarity. She wrote of the pain she carried, the fears that haunted her, and the fragile hope she held on to. The act of writing became a bridge between past and present, a way to process the grief and to chart a path forward. She wrote about the cottage and its hidden stories, about the strength she was beginning to find within herself, and about the baby who stirred softly inside her, a living promise of renewal. Night deepened, and the house settled around her like a protective cocoon. The shadows seemed less menacing now, softened by the gentle glow of her candle and the quiet rhythm of her breath. Emily felt a fragile peace take root inside her, a sense that, despite the hardships and the unknowns ahead, she was exactly where she needed to be. With the journal closed beside her and the candle flickering low, Emily allowed herself to rest, cradling her belly and listening to the quiet pulse of life within. The cottage, once a place of ghosts and silence, was slowly becoming a home, a sanctuary where healing could begin, and where the past and future could intertwine in a delicate dance of hope. The first morning light filtered hesitantly through the grime-coated windows, casting faint, pale beams across the dusty floorboards of the cottage. Emily stirred awake to an unusual warmth, a subtle shift in the atmosphere she couldn't quite explain. Sitting up slowly, she blinked against the soft light and noticed something she hadn't anticipated. A delicate arrangement of fresh wildflowers resting on the windowsill, their colors vibrant against the muted backdrop of peeling paint and faded curtains. Her fingers traced the petals, cool and dewy, and a curious flutter of emotion welled inside her. How had they gotten there? The garden outside was wild and unkempt. She hadn't yet ventured far enough to gather flowers. The sight felt like a gentle message, an unspoken welcome from the house itself, or perhaps from the memory of her mother. It was as if the cottage was reaching out, offering comfort in its own quiet language. Emily rose and moved toward the living room, where the faint scent of wood smoke lingered in the air. The hearth, cold when she had last left it, now held the remnants of a small, recently extinguished fire. She knelt beside the fireplace, brushing her fingers over the scattered ashes. The warmth wasn't just physical. It felt like a presence, a subtle reassurance amid the loneliness. Her heart quickened as she looked around, half expecting to see a figure standing in the shadows. But the room was empty, save for the dust motes dancing in the morning light. Still, the sensation lingered, a whisper of protection, as if the cottage itself was watching over her. Drawn by an impulse she couldn't resist, Emily made her way to the kitchen. There, on the countertop, she found a neatly folded cloth covering something she hadn't left behind. Slowly pulling it aside, she uncovered a steaming cup of tea, the aroma rich and soothing. The cup was simple but familiar. One of the chipped mugs she had seen earlier, now clean and filled as if prepared just moments ago. A sudden chill ran down her spine, a mixture of wonder and unease. Had someone come while she slept? Or was this another sign that the cottage held more than just physical space? That it was alive with memory and unseen care? Emily wrapped her hands around the warm cup, drawing comfort from its heat. She sipped cautiously, letting the warmth settle into her bones. The cottage was no longer a cold, empty shell, but a place responding to her presence, offering solace in subtle, mysterious ways. Later that day, as she wandered through the rooms, she noticed other small changes. The entryway rug, threadbare and faded, lay straightened and free of the dirt she was sure had been there the night before. The kitchen floor, previously littered with fallen leaves from the open window, was swept clean. Fresh firewood was stacked neatly by the hearth, as though someone had anticipated her needs. Emily's breath caught with a mixture of awe and disbelief. It was as if the house was nurturing her, preparing itself to be a sanctuary once again. The feeling grew stronger as she explored further, sensing a shift from cold desolation to quiet warmth. In the late afternoon, the sky heavy with gray clouds, Emily found herself drawn back to the small writing desk in her mother's bedroom. There, tucked beneath a loose floorboard she had discovered days before, was a folded letter she hadn't yet opened. Her hands trembled slightly as she unfolded the delicate paper, the familiar handwriting revealing itself beneath the folds. "My dearest Emily," it began, "this cottage is more than walls and timber. It is a refuge for the heart. In times of sorrow and uncertainty, it will hold you safe. Trust in its strength as you would trust in your own." The words felt like a balm on her weary soul. Her mother's voice, gentle yet resolute, seemed to fill the room, weaving comfort around her like a warm shawl. Emily folded the letter carefully, a tear slipping down her cheek. She sat at the desk, the letter resting beside her journal. The cottage had become a place of transformation, shifting from a symbol of loss to a haven of healing. The subtle signs of care, the lingering presence of her mother's love, all whispered a promise that she was not alone. As twilight deepened, Emily prepared a small meal in the kitchen, the simple act of cooking grounding her in the present. She placed the plate on the table and sat down, her eyes drawn once again to the flickering firelight. The cottage felt alive, breathing with memories and unseen guardianship. Outside, the wind began to pick up, rustling the skeletal branches of the surrounding trees. Rain threatened, but had not yet fallen. The house settled with gentle creaks and sighs, as if exhaling after a long stillness. Later, as Emily lay in bed, the faint scent of lavender drifted through the room, a fragrance she associated with her mother's presence. It was delicate and fleeting, yet unmistakable. Closing her eyes, she allowed herself to imagine her mother nearby, watching over her, a silent guardian in the quiet darkness. Sleep came slowly but peacefully, wrapped in the knowledge that the cottage was a sanctuary not just of stone and wood, but of love and protection. Emily felt, for the first time since her arrival, that she was truly home. Days passed in a gentle rhythm, each one unfolding with new discoveries that deepened Emily's connection to the cottage and the mother she had lost. One afternoon, propelled by a mix of restless curiosity and a quiet longing for answers, Emily climbed the narrow, creaking stairs to the attic, a space she had only briefly explored since arriving. The attic was cloaked in shadows, its low beams dust-laden and heavy with the scent of aged wood and forgotten memories. Sunlight filtered through a small, grimy window, casting a pale glow over stacks of old boxes and trunks. Emily's footsteps stirred the dust as she moved cautiously among the relics of her mother's past. Drawn to a weathered chest tucked into a corner, Emily knelt and lifted the heavy lid. Inside lay a carefully wrapped bundle of papers tied with faded ribbon, along with a small, leather-bound diary. She untied the ribbon, hands trembling slightly, and pulled out the diary first. The pages were filled with her mother's handwriting, neat cursive that betrayed years of hope, struggle, and unspoken fears. As Emily began to read, she felt herself drawn into a world of secret confidences, a glimpse into the private life her mother had lived far from prying eyes. The diary chronicled years of quiet resilience, the challenges her mother had faced raising a family alone, the sacrifices made to protect those she loved, and the relentless weight of old wounds that had never fully healed. But woven through the hardships was a thread of hope, a belief in the possibility of healing and renewal. One entry, dated just months before her mother's passing, spoke directly to Emily. "This cottage is my sanctuary, the place where I have sought refuge from the storms of life. It holds memories, yes, but also strength. I leave it to you, my beloved daughter, as a shield and a home. Guard it well, for within its walls lies the heart of our family." Emily's fingers lingered on the page, the words a lifeline across the years. The diary revealed not only her mother's love, but a profound understanding of the cottage's significance, a sacred space meant to nurture and protect through generations. Next, Emily unfolded the bundle of letters and photographs. Among them was a faded black and white picture of her mother standing beside a young woman Emily did not recognize, both smiling beneath a towering oak tree in the garden. Scribbled on the back was a single word: Margaret. Curiosity piqued, Emily set the photo aside and continued through the letters. They were addressed to her mother, written in elegant looping script, filled with expressions of concern, advice, and encouragement. The tone was tender, yet urgent, hinting at a friendship forged in hardship. One letter, dated several years earlier, mentioned a midwife named Margaret who had been a steadfast presence in her mother's life, offering guidance and support during times of crisis. The letters spoke of a bond that went beyond mere acquaintance, a connection rooted in trust and shared secrets. As Emily pieced together these fragments, a clearer picture emerged. The cottage had been more than a home. It was a sanctuary not only for her mother, but for the women who had come before, bound by love and the unspoken duty to protect their lineage. The diary also revealed a hidden compartment beneath the floorboards in the bedroom, the very spot Emily had already discovered the carved wooden box. Inside, her mother had planned to leave a cherished heirloom, a symbol of the family's strength and resilience. But the box remained empty. The contents never delivered. A note inside, written in hurried script, explained that her mother had delayed revealing the secret, waiting for the right time when Emily was ready to receive it. Emily's heart ached with a mixture of loss and anticipation. The cottage was a living testament to her mother's hopes and fears, a place imbued with a legacy that awaited her embrace. That evening, as the rain began to patter softly against the windows, Emily sat by the firelight, the diary resting on her lap. She thought about the women who had walked these halls before her, their strength, their sacrifices, and their unwavering love. The cottage was more than timber and stone. It was a spiritual refuge, a guardian of their stories, and a beacon for the future. Emily felt the weight of this inheritance settle upon her shoulders, not as a burden, but as a sacred trust. She reached for her own journal, the blank pages inviting her to begin writing her own story, to carry forward the legacy woven through generations. The house, once silent and still, now thrummed with possibility, a place where past and future met in quiet harmony. As the night deepened, Emily allowed herself to rest in the knowledge that she was not alone. The cottage, with all its hidden histories and whispered promises, stood ready to guide her through the challenges ahead, offering strength in the face of uncertainty. And within her, the stirring of new life, a promise of beginnings yet to come, reminded her that the story of this place was far from over. The calm that had begun to settle over the cottage was suddenly disrupted one crisp morning when a letter arrived, its envelope weathered and bearing the unmistakable crest of the Parker family. Emily's hands trembled as she broke the seal, unfolding the pages inside. The letter was from distant relatives, cousins she had barely known, expressing their intent to claim the cottage and sell it for profit, dismissing its sentimental value entirely. The words were sharp and cold, filled with legal jargon and veiled accusations. They painted the cottage as a burdensome relic, unsuited for modern life and too costly to maintain. The relatives demanded that Emily relinquish her claim immediately, threatening legal action if she refused. The letter was a stark reminder that not everyone shared her reverence for the home her mother had left behind. Emily's heart sank, the familiar ache of isolation deepening. The cottage, which had begun to feel like a sanctuary, was suddenly under siege by those who saw it only as an asset to be liquidated. Their demands felt like an intrusion, a violation of the sacred space she was trying to reclaim. But beneath the sting of their words, a fire kindled within her. She was determined not to let the cottage slip away, not now when it held so much meaning for her and the life growing inside her. The fight to protect her mother's legacy became a fierce resolve, a battle for more than just property. It was a stand for identity, memory, and love. Seeking help, Emily reached out to a local friend and neighbor, Mrs. Harlow, an elderly woman with deep roots in the community and a reputation for unwavering loyalty. Mrs. Harlow arrived at the cottage that afternoon, her presence a comforting balm amid the turmoil. She listened carefully as Emily recounted the letter and the threat it posed. "I know those relatives," Mrs. Harlow said quietly, her eyes darkening with concern. "They care only for money, not the history or the heart of this place. But you're not alone, Emily. This community remembers your family and will stand with you." Together, they began to prepare. Mrs. Harlow connected Emily with a trusted local lawyer Mr. Grayson, who had handled many estate disputes and was known for his integrity. With his guidance, Emily learned about the protections her mother had put in place through her will. Clauses that prioritized the preservation of the cottage and its legacy over financial gain. The legal battles were daunting. Letters and calls from her cousins became more frequent and aggressive, aiming to intimidate and wear her down. But Emily, bolstered by Mrs. Harlowe's unwavering support and the knowledge that her mother's wishes were clear, refused to back down. Amid the conflict, Emily found solace in the daily routines of the cottage. She tended the garden despite its wild state, planting seeds that her mother had once cherished. The act of nurturing life from the earth was a quiet rebellion against the threat looming over her home. Each sprout breaking through the soil was a testament to resilience and hope. Neighbors, once distant and wary, began to show their support. Small gestures, a basket of vegetables left on the porch, a warm meal delivered on a cold evening, reminded Emily that she was part of a community that valued more than just property lines. Their kindness wove a safety net beneath her, strengthening her resolve. The external pressures tested her strength, but also revealed the depth of her own courage. The cottage, once silent and vulnerable, became a symbol of defiance and endurance. Emily's connection to the land and to her mother's memory grew ever stronger, anchoring her through the storm. One evening, as autumn leaves swirled outside the windows, Emily sat with Mrs. Harlowe and Mr. Grayson around the kitchen table, papers spread before them. The lawyer's words were reassuring, the legal protections were solid, and the cousins' challenges lacked merit. The fight was far from over, but victory was within reach. Emily allowed herself a rare smile, the weight of uncertainty easing just enough to kindle hope. The cottage was more than a house. It was a legacy worth defending, a haven for her child and for the generations yet to come. As the fire crackled in the hearth, Emily felt a profound gratitude for the unexpected allies who had stepped forward. Their support transformed the battle from a lonely struggle into a shared cause, a testament to the power of community and the bonds forged through love and respect. In the quiet moments that followed, Emily looked around the room filled with fading light and familiar shadows. The cottage stood resilient, much like herself, scarred but unbroken, holding stories and secrets that refused to be silenced. Outside, the night deepened, wrapping the land in a protective cloak. Inside, Emily folded her hands over her swollen belly, drawing strength from the promise of new life and the enduring spirit of the home that would nurture it. The nights in the cottage grew longer and more mysterious as autumn deepened, the wind whispering through the skeletal branches outside, like a secret only the house could hear. Emily often found herself awake well past midnight, caught between exhaustion and an inexplicable restlessness that seemed to pulse through the very walls around her. It was during these quiet hours that strange things began to happen. Subtle, almost imperceptible at first, yet impossible to ignore. One evening, as she sat by the fireplace with a book resting unopened on her lap, Emily noticed the flickering flames casting shadows that seemed to move independently of the firelight. The room's corners darkened and brightened in a rhythm that felt like a silent conversation. A soft murmur, barely audible, brushed against her ears, like whispered words carried on the breeze. She strained to listen, but caught only fragments. A name, a gentle warning, a promise. The sensation was both unsettling and comforting, as if the cottage itself was alive and aware of her presence, reaching out to her through the veil between past and present. Emily's heart quickened, a mixture of fear and awe rooting her to the spot. She wanted to call out, to ask who was there, but the words caught in her throat. That night, her dreams were vivid and strange. She found herself walking through the woods surrounding the cottage, the moonlight filtering through the branches in silver shafts. Ahead, a figure emerged, a woman draped in soft light, her face unreadable but her eyes full of knowing. The woman reached out, placing a hand over Emily's belly, and whispered, "You are not alone." Emily awoke with a start, her skin damp with sweat, the echo of the voice lingering in her mind. The dream felt less like imagination and more like a visitation, a message carried from the past to bolster her in the present. In the days that followed, the strange occurrences continued. Doors she was certain she had locked would be found slightly ajar. Footsteps echoed softly in empty hallways. The scent of lavender, her mother's favorite, would drift through rooms long after she had burned the last of the dried flowers. And sometimes, when Emily was overwhelmed by doubt or fear, warm drafts of air would brush against her skin, as if invisible hands were offering reassurance. Rather than frighten her, these experiences became a source of solace. They mirrored the inner transformation she was undergoing, an acceptance of both loss and hope, a surrender to the mysteries that life held. The cottage was not merely a structure, it was a living presence, a guardian of memories and a beacon for the future. Emily found herself drawn to the small writing desk in her mother's bedroom once more. There, by candlelight, she began to record her experiences, the whispers in the night, the dreams, the subtle signs that comforted her. Writing became a ritual, each word a step toward embracing the unseen forces that surrounded her. Her journal filled quickly with reflections on grief and resilience, on the delicate threads that connect past and present. She wrote of the strength she found in surrendering control and allowing herself to be guided by the legacy of the women who had come before her. The cottage, with its flickering shadows and whispered voices, became a sanctuary not only for her body, but for her spirit. It nurtured her as surely as the earth nurtured the seeds she had planted in the garden. Quietly, patiently, with unwavering faith in the promise of growth. Neighbors noticed the change in Emily as well. The woman who had arrived burdened with grief now carried herself with a quiet confidence, her eyes shining with a new light. Mrs. Harlow, ever watchful, remarked on the subtle glow that seemed to surround her in the evenings, a warmth that reached beyond the physical. One afternoon, as Emily tended her garden, she found herself speaking aloud to the land, to the cottage, to the memory of her mother. She thanked them for their protection and guidance, for the strength they lent her when she felt weakest. The act felt natural, as if the boundaries between the seen and unseen were dissolving. As the days shortened and the chill of winter whispered on the horizon, Emily prepared for the arrival of her child with a newfound sense of peace. The cottage had become a vessel of healing, a place where the past and future intertwined, where the voices of the women who had preceded her mingled with the soft stirrings of new life. And when the night came that she went into labor, it was not with fear but with a profound trust in the legacy that surrounded her. The whispers in the dark, the guiding light of unseen hands, and the enduring strength of the cottage carried her through. In the stillness of that stormy night, as rain lashed against the windows and wind howled through the trees, Emily knew she was part of something greater, a lineage of love and resilience that would carry her and her child into whatever lay beyond. The storm had arrived with a sudden ferocity, the wind howling through the trees like a wild beast unleashed. Rain pounded against the windows of the cottage in relentless sheets, drumming a fierce rhythm on the roof that echoed Emily's racing heartbeat. The air was thick with tension, charged with the electric energy of the tempest outside and the storm building within her. Emily's labor began in the early hours, a sharp and unyielding pain that stole her breath and sent waves of urgency crashing through her body. Alone in the cottage, she clutched the wooden armrest of the chair, her knuckles white with the effort to steady herself amid the chaos. The flickering candlelight cast long shadows on the walls, dancing as wildly as the storm outside. Memories of the whispered voices and soft presences that had comforted her in recent weeks filled her mind, grounding her in the midst of the fear and uncertainty. She knew she was not alone, not truly. Somewhere in the depths of the house, a legacy of strength and love waited to guide her through this trial. As the pain intensified, Emily reached for the silver bell that had hung on a hook by the door, a simple heirloom left by her mother, its purpose long a mystery until now. With trembling hands, she rang it 3 times, the clear, ringing notes cutting through the storm's fury. Within minutes, a figure appeared at the door. Margaret, the midwife whose name had surfaced in the letters and photographs Emily had discovered. Draped in a thick cloak and carrying a leather satchel, Margaret entered the cottage with a calm authority that immediately eased the tension in the room. "Emily," she said softly, her voice steady and warm. "I'm here now. You're safe." Together, they moved to the bedroom, where a small fire had been tended to keep the chill at bay. Margaret's hands were gentle but sure, guiding Emily through each contraction with quiet encouragement and unwavering support. The storm outside seemed to mirror the tempest within, but inside the cottage, a different kind of energy took hold, a sacred rhythm of birth and renewal. Hours passed in a blur of pain and determination. Margaret's presence was a steady anchor, her knowledge and compassion a bridge between past and present. She spoke of the women who had come before, of the strength passed down through generations, and of the promise that this child carried within her. As the night deepened, Emily found herself drawing on reserves of courage she hadn't known she possessed. The cottage, with its creaking timbers and flickering shadows, was no longer a place of solitude, but a sanctuary alive with the power of legacy and love. Finally, as the storm reached its peak, a cry pierced the darkness, a sound both fragile and fierce, heralding new life. Emily's breath caught in her throat as Margaret gently placed the newborn in her arms. The baby's skin was soft and warm, her tiny fingers curling instinctively around Emily's. Tears streamed down Emily's face as she cradled her daughter, overwhelmed by a flood of emotions: relief, joy, and an unshakable sense of connection to the lineage that had brought them both to this moment. Margaret smiled, her eyes shining with quiet pride. "She's strong, just like you, a new keeper of the legacy." Outside, the storm began to abate, the rain softening to a gentle patter and the wind's howl fading into a whisper. Inside the cottage, a profound stillness settled, wrapping mother and child in a cocoon of warmth and hope. Emily named her daughter Elelena, after the woman whose wisdom and love had guided them through the darkness. As she held Elelena close, Emily felt the threads of past and future weaving together, a tapestry of resilience, healing, and enduring love. The birth had not only brought new life into the world, but it also marked the continuation of a story that stretched back through generations. The cottage, once silent and waiting, now thrummed with the vibrant pulse of family and legacy, renewed. In the quiet hours after the birth, Emily whispered promises to her daughter, to protect her, to teach her the strength of their heritage, and to honor the women who had come before them. The journey ahead was uncertain, but in that moment, cradling Elelena in the soft glow of dawn, Emily knew they would face it together. The storm outside had passed, leaving behind a sky brushed with pale light and the faint promise of a new day. Inside the cottage, mother and child began the first chapter of their shared story, a testament to the power of love, courage, and the unbreakable bonds of family. In the weeks that followed the birth of her daughter, Emily found herself settling into a new rhythm, one shaped by the soft cries of la nena, the quiet routines of motherhood, and the steady beat of the cottage's enduring presence. The house, once a neglected relic, had transformed into a haven filled with warmth, love, and the subtle echoes of generations past. Despite the lingering shadows of the legal battles with her distant relatives, Emily's resolve only deepened. The hostility had begun to wane, their challenges thwarted by Mr. Grayson's steadfast defense and the clear protections woven into her mother's will. Each setback they faced seemed to underscore the strength of the legacy Emily now embodied, a lineage rooted not in wealth but in resilience and heart. Neighbors who had once viewed her arrival with wary eyes now approached with quiet respect and genuine kindness. Mrs. Harlow was a constant presence, bringing meals and sharing stories of the family's history, weaving Emily and Elena more tightly into the fabric of the community. The support buoyed her spirits, reminding her that she was not alone in this journey. One afternoon, as the autumn sun filtered through the golden leaves outside, Emily discovered a final letter tucked inside the wooden box beneath the bedroom floorboards, the heirloom compartment her mother had long intended to reveal. The envelope was thick and sealed with wax, the Parker family crest embossed on its surface. With trembling hands, Emily broke the seal and unfolded the letter. Her mother's handwriting, familiar and steady, filled the page with words of encouragement and love. She spoke of the pain and hardship that had marked their family's path, but emphasized the power of forgiveness and hope. "Dear Emily," the letter began, "if you are reading this, you have embraced the legacy I have entrusted to you. The cottage is more than a home. It is a sanctuary of love and strength. Within these walls, you will find joy and sorrow, but also the courage to face whatever comes. Remember, the power of our family lies not in possessions, but in the bonds we share and the love we carry forward." Tears blurred Emily's vision as she clutched the letter to her chest. It was a final gift, a beacon to guide her through the uncertainties ahead. The words echoed in her heart, a reminder that she was part of something enduring and profound. As the days shortened and the first frost dusted the garden, Emily began to restore the cottage with renewed purpose. She mended the broken shutters, repaired the sagging porch, and cleared the overgrown paths that led through the wildflowers and ancient oaks. Each act of care was a tribute to her mother's memory and a promise to Elena, a foundation upon which new memories could be built. Through it all, Emily kept her journal close, recording the unfolding story of their lives. The pages filled with reflections on healing, resilience, and the unbreakable bond between mother and daughter. She wrote of the lessons learned within the cottage's walls and the strength found in embracing both the past and the future. One evening, as the fire crackled softly in the hearth and Elena slept peacefully in her cradle, Emily sat by the window, gazing out at the starlit sky. The cottage stood silent and steadfast, a beacon of hope and continuity amid the shifting seasons. In that stillness, Emily felt a profound connection to the women who had come before her. Their whispers carried on the wind, their love woven into the very fabric of the land. The legacy was alive, breathing through her and her daughter, a living thread that would bind generations yet to come. With a quiet smile, Emily reached for her pen and began to write a new entry, one filled with gratitude and anticipation. The journey was far from over, but she faced it with courage and an open heart, ready to honor the past while embracing the promise of tomorrow. The cottage, once a place of sorrow and solitude, had become a home, a sanctuary where healing flourished and the enduring power of family was celebrated. And as the first snowflakes began to fall softly outside, Emily knew that their story was only just beginning. Autumn had fully settled over the countryside, its crisp air carrying the scent of wood smoke and fallen leaves. The cottage, once shrouded in neglect and silence, now stood resilient and welcoming, its walls warmed by the glow of a rekindled hearth and the laughter of a growing family. Emily moved through the rooms with quiet purpose, each step a testament to the healing that had taken root within these walls. With little Elela Nena nestled safely beside her in a hand-woven blanket, Emily sat at the small wooden table by the window. The late afternoon sun filtered through the glass, casting golden patches of light that danced across the pages of the journal before her. It was a new book, gifted by Mr. Grayson during their last visit, a symbol of the legacy Emily was now entrusted to carry forward. Her pen hovered briefly over the blank page before she began to write, the words flowing with a clarity and strength born of hard-won peace. She chronicled the journey that had brought her here, the heartbreak and hope, the shadows and the light, and the profound bond between mother and daughter that had been both their anchor and their guide. Outside, the garden bloomed with the last vibrant colors of the season. Emily had spent countless afternoons tending to the wildflowers and herbs her mother had once cherished, nurturing the land as a living tribute to the women who had come before her. The earth beneath her fingers was fertile with memory and promise, a foundation for the future she was determined to build. The cottage had become more than a home. It was a sanctuary where past and present intertwined. The walls held stories whispered through generations, a tapestry woven from love, resilience, and the enduring spirit of the Parker women. In the quiet moments between tending to her daughter and restoring the house, Emily found herself reflecting on the strength that had carried her through the darkest times. The legal battles, the loneliness, the fear, all had been met with a fierce determination to protect what was sacred. With the support of neighbors like Mrs. Harlow and the steadfast guidance of Mr. Grayson, she had stood firm against those who sought to dismantle her inheritance. Now, surrounded by the warmth of the cottage and the soft breathing of Elela Nena, Emily felt a profound sense of belonging. The legacy was no longer a distant weight, but a living, breathing force, one she was ready to nurture and pass on. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the sky in shades of rose and amber, Emily closed the journal and set it aside. She lifted Elela Nena into her arms, feeling the gentle heartbeat that mirrored her own. The child's eyes fluttered open, meeting hers with a quiet trust that filled Emily's heart with unspoken promises. Together, they watched the last light fade from the sky, the stars beginning to twinkle like distant lanterns guiding their way. The cottage stood steadfast around them, a guardian of their story and a beacon for all the chapters yet to come. Emily whispered a soft vow to protect this place, to honor the legacy of the women before her, and to give Elela Nena a world filled with love, strength, and hope. The journey ahead was uncertain, but in this moment, surrounded by the echoes of the past and the promise of the future, she knew they were ready. With the night settling gently over the land, mother and daughter embraced the quiet peace that had been so long awaited. The cottage, their sanctuary, held them close, a timeless witness to the enduring power of family, love, and the unbreakable bonds that carry us through even the darkest storms. And as the first stars shone brightly above, Emily began to write their new beginning, a story of healing and resilience that would live on in the hearts of generations yet unborn.